Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, hello, welcome to the show. It's June 5th. God almighty. June 5th. And it's a Wednesday. I have to give you a heads up that Amy and I are both going on vacation next week. I don't know if you have noted, but my brain power seems truly diminished this week. I'm just like, I can't. I just don't feel like I feel like I need another one of those breaks. I'm not taking a month. I'm just taking a week. You know, it gets to me. So, just so as you know, got some different kind of stuff here today. I want to say that this is such. I was aware of this, but then lost track of it, and just want to say it's back in the news because it got another a judicial hearing. And that is a lawsuit brought, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago by children. Well, they were children then. Some of them now can vote. Some are in college. And this is a lawsuit called Juliana versus United States. And these children brought the case saying that our government, the United States, has failed to protect them and future generations from the worst effects of climate change. And because they have failed to act, these children say that they and their compatriots risk, let me get their quote, risk being deprived of their right to life, liberty, property, and public trust resources by federal government acts that knowingly destroy, endanger, and impair the unalienable climate system that nature endows. Now, I'm no legal scholar. My guess is this is a long shot and always was. But I so appreciate the fact that these kids chose to do this, that the suit remains alive. 3 federal judges heard arguments yesterday about this, whether in fact, I guess the question boils down to whether these children, the plaintiffs, have a constitutional right to enjoy the same climate that their parents did and their grandparents did. You can see where it'd be a little squishy. The judges were very apparently serious throughout, but kept acknowledging that these children were asking them to go into uncharted territory. But of course, that's where we're going with climate change. So I just want to say there was 21 people, young people, and they're still hoping to see their case go as far as the U.S. Supreme Court. Seems to me there was another case brought maybe a year ago by also minors in one of the New England states that was about their right to have a good education as opposed to what they were getting in their public school system. I think these suits are probably almost always long shots, but they sure do, if media does its job, sort of concentrate the rest of us paying attention to these very big issues. Speaking of climate change, of course, our president was heard on British television to say that climate change goes both ways. Sort of like there's very fine people on both sides. He's a real middle-of-the-road kind of a guy. Climate change, he says, first they called it global warming, but that didn't quite work out for them. So then they went to climate change, and now they're this and that. And he's just, I mean, this stupidity, I don't know. Goes both ways. It's a Chinese hoax, too. Remember, there was that. I believe there's a change in weather, he says. And I think it changes both ways. What does that mean? Yeah, it's sunny one day, and then it's rainy the next. It changes both ways. Don't forget, here's his quote, it used to be called global warming. That wasn't working. Then it was called climate change. Now it's actually called extreme weather because, with extreme weather, you can't miss. And actually, in that regard, the president calls out our side again for its almost constant failure to properly brand whatever idea we're selling. So I understand why initially we called it global warming because temperatures were ticking up. But then, in fact, there was all this extreme weather kicked off by the climate changes that occurred as a result of the warming of the oceans and the air. But I'm just saying, our side, not good. And then Trump, who clearly had schooled himself on climate change, went on and said, 40 years ago, we had the worst tornado binge we've ever had. In the 1980s, we had our worst hurricanes. I mean, in the 1890s. In the 1890s. How does he even know? Somebody told him that. In the 1890s, we had our worst hurricanes. First of all, I doubt that. It's possible. I would imagine he's talking about death tolls, and death tolls were higher with a hurricane in the 1890s simply because they didn't have the meteorological prognostication tools to prepare to see the hurricane coming, 2-3 days before it got there, to evacuate, when people just got slammed and blown or washed away. My guess is that he's doing death tolls and perhaps property damage, but I don't know. So Prince Charles met with them for 90 minutes yesterday, trying obviously futilely to get Trump to understand that climate change was real and it was a big problem. But his White House will continue to lead the know-nothings of the world on this issue, countering the scientific claims that are now almost unanimously endorsed. And a case in point, he has put a guy named William Happer in the position of handling the White House response, because it's not anything they're going to actively do. It's just a defensive response to others demanding that they do something about climate change in as much as we can. And obviously that has to do with human behavior and curtailing human behavior. The guy he's put in touch, see what I mean? The guy who he's put in place to lead that effort, William Happer, I have a quote here from him, and it's just beyond belief. I'm hardly able to share it with you, but I have to. This is a guy who is going to be essentially the White House's climate change expert. Ready for the quote? The demonization of carbon dioxide is just like the demonization of the poor Jews under Hitler. I don't have when I read that, I thought, whoa, what? It is, I mean, that statement is offensive on so many levels that unbelievable. But this is who Donald Trump has placed in charge of the issue of global warming. And he might have been interested in an article actually in today's business section of the New York Times that is headlined, "Companies Expect to Feel Climate Change's Bite." And it's a whole article about how some companies, from the tech giants to manufacturers to even European banks, are bracing for the impact of climate change and seeing a lot of negative impact on the only thing they ever care about, of course, which is their money. So it says here that pressure on these corporate entities from their shareholders and from increasingly from regulators, certainly not here, but in Europe, they are being asked to disclose, to figure out, crunch the numbers, and disclose the financial impacts that they expect to face as the planet warms. I mean, things from everything like their supply chains being broken and or disrupted. Obviously, if they're in coal and oil, the fact that regulations could start to really hurt their bottom lines. The corporate sector generally estimates that they're looking at losses well into the trillions. I'm sure that is true. A quote, "The numbers we're seeing are already huge, but it's clear that this is just the tip of the iceberg," which, as we know, is melting. However, as in any business report, there's as Trump likes to say, there's two sides. And some companies are seeing global warming as entrepreneurial opportunity. Listen to this. Eli Lilly, a drug maker in the U.S., cited research suggesting that rising temperatures could drive the spread of infectious diseases. Yay! And they see that as a good thing for them because, well, here's their quote. "This may then increase demand for certain medicines we produce." So, yay! Let's hear it for climate change and warmer temperatures creating, maybe pandemics and the easier spread of contagious disease. Yes, because we're going to make money. Excuse me. Unbelievable. Roger says, I've never been compared to carbon dioxide before. How does it feel? Well, I didn't have any words before, and I have none now. Unbelievable. Poor carbon dioxide being treated just like those Jews. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Okay. Also, on the ecological front, because I saw this, it was under this thing in the business section, and I've already noticed it. When you travel and you stay in a hotel, one of the things you like are those little bottles of, shampoo and lotion and all that stuff that they give you, and you're allowed. You're not stealing if you pocket it. And I think most people have some of those bottles at home somewhere. They're going to be gone. Those are called, in the ecological world, those are called single-use plastic. And they're one of the things that, in this article, they're called low-hanging fruit. If you want to start just pushing back through governmental regulation on the amount of plastic that we produce and then throw away, polluting our oceans, killing flora and fauna. It's unbelievable what all this plastic does. Say goodbye to it. There is a bill, and of course it's California, and when it passes, and it probably will be the first law of its kind in the country, that will make it illegal for a hotel or anybody to carry these little single-use plastic bottles of toiletries. And the reality is we're one of the big, North America is the third largest producer of plastic waste. I'm going to guess that China might be the biggest. But being third is not bragging rights. And so I'm just saying, if you got some of those, you might want to, hang on to them as relics. You can show your great-grandchildren. You see this? This is what you used to. And so here's what they're doing. Don't worry, you don't necessarily have to pack your own shampoo and conditioner. Most hotels that are taking them out are putting, containers on the walls that are filled with the stuff. So in the shower, there's shampoo, and actually that's a much better idea, right? Much better idea. Just heads up. Next time you're stunned when you think, "Where's my little bottle of shampoo?" I don't know if you guys already heard this, but I had not seen the number before. And that is how many Bernie Sanders primary voters voted for Trump in the general election. Or, doesn't matter the or because it had the same effect, or voted for Jill Stein, or didn't vote for anybody. But it is 25% of all of Bernie's supporters did not then support the Democratic ticket. And there's the election. There's the election. If you crunch the numbers, 12% of them voted for Donald Trump. The rest backed Stein or other minor party candidates or stayed home. That would amount to over 800,000 votes. 800,000 votes, which is 10 times Trump's combined margins in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So this actually is from a opinion piece that is arguing that Democrats are looking like they're going to do the same thing they did with that race, that they're going to turn from their more progressive wing and go with a centrist, a moderate, who they feel will win in a general election, which is why Biden's so up there. And it's why, as I told you when I was talking to some of the local Dems at the Planned Parenthood event this weekend, they all clearly are terrified of the resurgent progressives and that includes that includes Elizabeth Warren. That includes, I think it includes almost everybody for them. They're scared, and they think it dooms the party in a national election. But this guy says, so here we go again. The centrists are coalescing around the idea that Trump is so dangerous that the Democrats must unite behind the most electable candidate. And I often say I'm not necessarily a moderate, but I'm a pragmatic. I'm a pragmatist when it comes to this. I just want to figure out who's the person who wins. I don't care. If it's Biden, all right, it's Biden. But who wins? But see, how do we know that? Are we all of a sudden, extraordinary seers capable of knowing what this restive electorate is going to do in November of 2020? I'm not willing to step out and say I know, and I don't know anybody who does. And the very people who are paid to know, the pundits and the prognosticators, they clearly don't know anymore either. But this guy says, but this is the approach that gave us Trump in the first place. We put up a serious, extraordinarily well, that resume that Hillary Clinton had. You can't get a better resume for running for president. You can't get a better resume. And we knew she was serious and wonky and just imbued with a passion to use the office to do good stuff. You might not have liked her. You might not have, whatever. You might not have wanted the damn family back, the Clintons. But in our heads, because we're rational people, there was no doubt she was going to win. What, you're going to not vote for this capable human being, and you're going to vote for this clown? A clown. A know-nothing, narcissistic clown. And that's what the voters did. Think of who Democrats have elected to the presidency in the last times we've won. There was Jimmy Carter and there was Bill Clinton, right? Now, both of those guys were centrist as hell and Southern, which helped. Southern white men. And then the first time we went out of the box with Barack Hussein Obama, we won. I don't know. On paper, Gore was good. On paper, Kerry was fine. But they were lackluster candidates, and we lost. They were safe, sober, and losers. So this guy says, hard as it is for centrist Democrats to fathom, many progressives would rather see a second Trump term than a President Biden. I don't think that's true. I mean, we could maybe the same 12% of Bernie's, but that's not, is that many? Well, if it comes out to 800,000, that's many. They won't vote for us. And it's not like they have to vote for Trump. They just have to sit it out. I don't know. And again, I will humble brag that I'm humble on this issue. I don't pretend to know who our candidate should be. I don't. And speaking of Biden, man, he's known as messing things up on campaigns, and he's starting to do it. I don't have it here, do I? He put out his climate change policy, and people immediately noticed that it looked like a lot of it was lifted right out of other people's climate change policies. And as you know, his effort to win the Democratic nomination in 1988 was derailed by his plagiarism of a British lawmaker's speech. So this is something that comes back, and here we have it again, the failure to now he didn't write this policy paper, but somebody on his staff did. And it helps to tar him and make it look like, in many ways, this is not a well thought out candidacy. The other thing that I found most troubling is that the policies that he lifted out of somebody else's policy was lifted out of a environmental kind of a paper written by the coal industry. Now, that's troubling. Why would you go to a coal industry publication to get some of your stuff when you, I mean, seriously, I'm just asking, why? And then, this is an article in what? The Washington Post. And listen to this, and tell me if my reaction is correct. The reporter, talking about this stuff with the Biden policy and the lifting of stuff from a coal industry paper, says this: other campaigns have used unattributed language similar to that crafted by primary sources. A policy plan by Senator Kamala Harris includes this line. Okay, listen to it. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. And then the next sentence in this report is, that is identical to a reference in an American Heart Association document. Well, so when they went to the Harris campaign and said, look at that, black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women, That's lifted right out of that American Heart Association thing, which, by the way, lifted it out of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And the person at the Harris campaign said what I was thinking. It's not plagiarism. It's a statistic. It's a statistic. How else are you going to say that? Okay, let's not say exactly that. Let's maybe say black women are what? 4 to 5 instead of 3 to 4? What are you going to do? It's a statistic. That's not the same thing as plagiarism. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, here's somebody saying, I guess his staff borrowed this stuff from the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions Carbon Capture Coalition, which is an industry group of polluters. Its members include Shell and Peabody Energy and Arch Coal. And Biden's staff is getting his climate change stuff from there. Oh, dear. So, just saying. Just saying. Did you see some Trump supporter in London went after the baby balloon? Started stabbing it? Apparently the balloon did not succumb to these injuries because it remained inflated. That wasn't the most outrageous depiction, the screaming baby in a diaper that is that balloon. They also have, and I'm sure you've probably seen this, a huge, it's really like a statue, big statue of Donald Trump seated on a commode while posting messages on Twitter. And you know he's posting messages on Twitter because this statue actually speaks. And it speaks in his voice. So it's got him sitting there on the toilet tweeting, and out of the statue comes, "I am a very stable genius." And "You are fake news." Speaking of fake news, I happen to have the misfortune of happening upon his and Theresa May's press conference in which he was asked by a reporter about the tens of thousands of Londoners in the streets, not to mention balloons and statues, that were protesting him. And his response was, "Where are those protests? I don't see any protests. I did see a small protest today when I came. Very, very small. So a lot of it is fake news." Of course, he says that as these, on a split screen, there's these. Granted, they were not as big as his last visit in, I think, a year ago. However, one Brit said, "Hey guys, look, we are going through our own, British citizens are now so exhausted by our own government's extraordinary incompetence and failure to lead us. And we've been in the streets about that, and frankly, we are, like us, they are just burned out." He also, and when he said it, I said, huh? He said, here's the quote, This is talking to the British press and standing there with the outgoing PM, May. He says, "We are your largest partner. You are our largest partner." And he was talking economically. That's absolutely false. I mean, I thought, what? How could that be? How could that possibly be? And it turns out it can't possibly be. If you rank them, the UK is 7th. He just says whatever. Well, I know. Listen, I know. I hear you shouting. Tell us something we don't know, Cullen. God. Stop talking about stuff we all know. Oh, and, a lot of people like to hate the New York Times White House reporter, Maggie Haberman. Sometimes her reportage annoys me. Sometimes I really appreciate it. Yeah. But maybe she didn't, because this was written by two people, Maggie Haberman and Katie Rogers. And it's a fluff story about Donald Trump's children in London. And first of all, I have to say this. Continuing to call them children is, first of all, they're not children. They're grown-ups. I mean, they're here's what it says. Either Maggie or Katie wrote this, and whoever wrote it, I'd sure like to have them defend it. Here it is. On this visit, a family opportunity surfaced. The Kennedys have long occupied the American political culture as the unofficial royal family of the United States. But this week, the Trumps appeared to present themselves as the 2019 version. What the hell? That group of repulsive grifters, and you're saying that they have toppled the Kennedys as the American royal family? Well, maybe we deserve them. I don't know. My head exploded. My head exploded. Oh. Okay. There was a sock in the gut to me this morning when I was, reading all the sources I read, and I came upon such an unhappy piece of news. And I want to share it with you. Pittsburgh's great stage actor and wondrous human being, Bingo O'Malley, has died. And it was like a sock in the gut. I didn't know Bingo well, but I knew him enough that when I saw him, if I was at any event and he was there, man, I made a beeline. I just loved him. He exuded a humanity that infused his acting work. I mean, he could take on any role and totally inhabit it. He could have been a great actor. He just never left Pittsburgh. Bingo was 86, and the thing I learned from this obituary that blew me away, by the way, written by Bill O'Driscoll, who used to be on this show quite often because he was a reporter here at City Paper. And Bill writes that Bingo was his actual name. His parents named him Bingo? I mean, that's pretty amazing. And his daughter said that they loved he was named after like Bing Crosby or something. Oh, here it is. He grew up working class in Oakland. His niece confirms that Bingo was his legal name. My family loved Bing Crosby, Bingo once said. Bingo was a Catholic priest for 2 years. He was a door-to-door Bible salesman. And the incredible thing is the priest stint happened when he was in his 60s. I wish I'd known him better. Every time I was with him, I thought, I want this guy as a friend. I want him. I love him. I just loved him. His day job was social work. And here's somebody saying, and I'm sure this is true, the reason he was such a brilliant actor is he had such enormous compassion and empathy. He was never there for any assertion of ego. That is so true. He was unselfconsciously able to literally inhabit a character. Somebody writes here, it's so intuitive. It goes beyond traditional theater training. And in fact, a lot of theater-trained actors felt that Bingo was the greatest actor they ever acted with. He never went to acting school. He was totally self-taught. Navy veteran. If you never saw him, I am so sorry. And if you look often at the credits of Made in Pittsburgh films, Bingo is in a lot of them. And I mean, always little teeny parts, but he was in George Romero's Creep Show. He was in Wonder Boys. He was in Out of the Furnace with Christian Bale. And he was also in that TV miniseries, The Kill Point, which is on Spike TV. He was amazing. Rest in peace, Bingo. I just love that. I mean, I don't know. I loved him. Oh, Barbara sent me more Trump stuff from London. He said he would not have minded at all serving in the military during the Vietnam War. Is that why he got 4 deferments? He was asked why, whether he wished he could have served in Vietnam, as if somebody was saying, no, you cannot go. The president said he was never a fan of the war, calling Vietnam a country nobody'd even ever heard of. But then he said he would have been happy and honored to have served. Oh my God. Here's his direct quote. I would not have minded that at all. I would have been honored, but I think I make up for it right now. I think I'm making up for it rapidly because we're rebuilding our military at a level that it's never seen before. Oh, dear God in heaven. There's another, so the Republicans look like they're actually going to stand up to him on the Mexican tariff thing. We'll see. It also appears that the Republicans in the Senate are joining Democrats. And here's the mind-blowing part. Even Lindsey Graham, Trump's lapdog, is joining with Democratic Senator Robert Menendez, introducing, I don't think these things have any standing, what are called resolutions of disapproval. And it is an effort to, I guess, be on board. It's too late to do anything. What they're disapproving of are 22 arms deals that the White House made with Saudi Arabia, in which they, I believe, sent Saudi Arabia a whole bunch of nuclear technology. The Department of Energy said that the White House had allowed U.S. nuclear energy companies to share their technology with Saudi Arabia. And get this, they okayed this just 2 weeks after the Saudis killed Khashoggi. This is how they punished Saudi Arabia for killing a Washington Post employee in their consulate in Istanbul, sawing him up into pieces. So 2 weeks later, the whole world was just aghast at what had occurred. Trump says, okay, hey, all you nuclear energy companies, sure, you share anything you want with them. And then he did it again less than a week after the House voted to end American backing for the Saudi war in Yemen. Incredible. I'm just seeing what else I got here for you. Oh, this was funny. And one of you sent it to me. I want to thank you, Kurt. As I hadn't seen it. It is Gene Collier's column. And I don't know, was this in, I don't know where it was. I thought it was in the PG, but I'm not sure it was. But he does a riff on those damn drug company commercials that I've talked about that just it drives him crazy in the same way it drives me. All these, if you're watching news, it's clear that the audience is geriatric because all it is one pharmaceutical company ad after another with all of these gorgeous looking, often fatally ill people cavorting, loving their lives, butterflies, dogs, everything's wonderful. And it's just so, and then the narrative, those are the visuals, and the narrative is so ludicrous, and all of those, half of it easily is all of these, possible bad effects it could have, and he just goes to town with it, and I love it. We have before I share it, some of it with you, we have a caller. Caller, go ahead.
Lynn?
Yes?
Hi, Lynn.
Hello?
You remember if I call you Ida Miller from Green Bay, Wisconsin?
Yeah?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to call and tell you, I'm glad that you got your microphone fixed, because I've been watching you on YouTube and I could hardly hear you. And whenever you had your sister on and callers, they came booming through. But yeah, I could hardly hear.
Well, we're here.
That done?
What?
You got that fixed up?
Well, I thought you said it was fixed. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Lynn.
Well,
Is
great.
that a commercial? Hey, let me tell you one thing, okay? Before I let you go, I want to tell you something. I think when you're on the show, you look real good in black. You should wear more black, honey, because you look sexy.
Well, thank you very much, and I will take your sartorial suggestions to heart. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Don't ask me. So Collier starts with this because I love this. You should probably know at the start of this column that I've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common. Because that's one of the things that, first of all, how do you know where fungal infections are common? Excuse me. When I'm I've gone off to various countries and never have I seen information prior to my visit or even while I'm there that would alert me to the fact that fungal infections are, anyway, but it's one of so he goes off on that for a while. But he just has a ball with this. Because he just literally, I've often thought of bothering to do this. He does write down some of this stuff. He points out that this country, and it figures, is one of the few nations on earth that allow drug companies to market their wares directly to us. And the only thing that our country says to them is, all right, well, we're going to let you do this. But you will have to let people know about the most serious side effects. And so that's why you get half of the commercial being this hysterical rendition after they've told you how this is going to change what's left of your life and blah, blah, blah. Then it says, and he's got it down here. I just love this. Call your doctor right away if you have shortness of breath, chest pain, diarrhea, severe abdominal pain, yellowing of the skin, are bleeding or bruising more easily, experience rapid heartbeat, hearing loss, chills, constipation, muscle aches, dizziness, fainting, headaches that won't go away, itchy, blistering, peeling skin, skin sores, mouth ulcers, nose ulcers, throat ulcers, I think he's making some of this up, eye pain, confusion, shaking, wheezing, flushing, or a sudden compulsion to learn the bagpipe. I definitely know he made that up. And then there's drugs that are for your heart. Oh, some of his favorites are this, and they are. It's a drug for your heart, and it says that one of the things that can sometimes happen is new or worsening heart failure. Well, excuse me, what? And he said another pitch is for a drug that, quote, can cause your immune system to attack normal organs and can lead to death. And he says, wait, what? What? I just, how do you not laugh hysterically through these things? This is this is for a humorist like Gene Collier is just, it's a lob that he hit out of the park. And here's one of my favorites too. I didn't know it was spelled this way, but here it is. do not take Farxiga if you are allergic to Farxiga. As he says, wait, what? How? Well, there's a number of questions. I have a follow-up question to that. Why would I, first of all, how would I even know I was allergic to it until I took it? I mean, don't take it if you're allergic to it. And he says, yes, they're required to say that, but happily enough, it keeps them from saying something like, if you're the kind of goofball who would take Farxiga, knowing you're allergic to Farxiga, perhaps what ails you is beyond the capacity of Farxiga. Call your doctor immediately if you plan on leaving the house. Wow. Well, he hit it out of the park, and I just thought you might enjoy it. Oh, Lord. We got 3 minutes. 3 minutes? What am I going to do with 3 minutes? I saw that the county has released... Oh, they released some of the write-ins during our last primary election here. People do write stuff. Do you know how many people wrote a name in here, just in Allegheny County in those elections? I'm blown away by this. 43,000. I've only, I think, once or twice, and they've always been jokes. I mean, it's just, like throwing up my hands and saying, Daffy Duck. So they're still pouring through the over 43,000 write-ins. It says we've started with the larger races, and I don't recognize any of the people who got write-ins. For county controller, some Republican got 1,800, Brooke Nedonley. I don't recognize any of these names, and they don't look like they were people trying to have fun. So I remember being stunned when I was first in broadcasting, which was in Madison, Wisconsin, and the newspaper did an article like a few days after the election, and found out that I had gotten like a number of write-in votes for president. I think it was when Jimmy Carter ran. What would that have been? 76? Yeah, I got some votes for president. But when I see that write-in, I guess it's easily done. It just never occurs to me because what's the point? What's the point? But obviously 43,000, that's amazing. Okie doke. I think I'm going to hang it up. I've got some other stuff here, but I've only got a minute left, and those two things just don't go comfortably together, so I'm going to hang it up. Thank you if you were there, and if I wear black tomorrow, I don't want you to think it is a result of that caller. I just might. I don't know. Hey, check this out. There, right? I'm wearing black on my back. Have a good day. Stay dry. Goodbye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.